Hello guys, welcome to Train Parrot and to another episode of the live TA for elite members of my Patreon community. This is a session that we do every Thursday religiously, except if I have to go to the hospital or something important. Like last week, we couldn't do it. So this week we had a lot to catch up. We got the coins that my Patreon community selected from previous week, and we also got the ones that you selected during this week. So I'm going to be focusing. Oh wow, we have plenty of votes on XRP, Solana, Ethereum, Track, Link, XPL, BTC Pump, AVAX, ENA, BNB, and ENJ. And we got 1 hour to cover all these coins. And if you want to be part of this, if you're watching this on a Friday, that means that you're lucky enough to watch this publicly and edit in a shorter version of the video. But if you want to join the live stream, you can join as an elite member. There's a link in the description and there is a QR code appearing in the screen. You need to get the elite membership though. That is the one that you require for this. So let's get started with XRP. I'm going to go in here into my chart. I already have this one in here. I yesterday reviewed XRP, but I didn't look specifically into liquidity pools, and therefore it's important that today we keep an eye on that as well. So we managed to get into the 1618 on XRP. That's very close to 1.2 on the weekly. We actually got rejected at 1297, and we are placing what could look like eventually like a red engulfing candle of a rejection, but that comes in right after this massive week into 857. Sorry, I'm not looking at XRP. This is what happens when you rush too much here. I was like, what the hell is that price for XRP? XRP will never get to $800. Yeah, so basically on XRP we have a completely different situation. We have a very similar triangle to this one that we got in here. We got a revenge rally that went into RSI of 70, and now it's with an RSI pending from a thread, putting a new low relative to the momentum that we already have in June. That June there was the spring into the new highs of 36. Currently, we are holding support of $2.4. That was previous resistance of the double bottom that pushed us into that way. So this looks at the moment like a retest of 2.4, right? Because you broke out and you came back down. It's a very painful retest. If you look at that from the point of view of RSI, you can see that it's a lot worse than just a retest because it broke out in June, revenge rally completed, and then put in new lows and far away from being a retest. A retest on the RSI should look something like this and then continuation. But I'm tempted to say it's not that. So we need the 2.4 to hold. The next support is $2. $2 has been the pillar of everything that we are doing around this area. What I'm afraid to see in here is this weekly pattern. So if we did all of this and then we do this other one and we come back to $2, we got a pretty bearish pattern with a neck at $2. And I don't even want to see what's the target, but it might be even negative, which in that case is invalid, but is a pattern that points into 15, 16 cents, where, we haven't been there in a long time. This is pretty much March 2020, in the middle of the COVID crash. We were trading at those prices. I'm not sure we can really do that during the bull market, but watch out with other scenarios. The thing that spooks me about XRP at the moment is if we lose the 2.4 and we go for $2, what are we doing there? And this applies to a lot of coins. Many coins weak, very low, even into the lows of bear market prices. XRP went into 1.2, so fair enough. It didn't go into cents, right? That would have been even worse. So coming into this area of 2 makes me concerned of whether this really wants to break down. Why now more than ever? Because we already went to sweep this liquidity. So if we come to $2, then my concern is that what this pattern really wants to do is not to repeat this, to go into 2, but to go deeper. That is my concern. If we go to $2, what are we doing there? We cannot do a liquidity hunt in here. We already did the liquidity hunt. You don't do it twice. You go very low, you kick everybody, you bounce back up into support, and you resume the uptrend. So if we go to $2, we are kind of challenging that narrative. And and that is my concern if we go below 2.4. Let's look at a bit of liquidity on trading different for XRP. And I remind you that I have you right here in the chat. So if you want to say hello, this is the time to do that. If you want to ask me any specific questions about any of the assets that I'm doing, remember that the first coins that I'm doing are usually more in depth. And once we go into the ones that have least votes, I'm going to go faster. Probably I'm going to skip some data points. You can still vote during the session. If you want to bring something into more detail, just give your hearts to other coins and then they flip. I'm going to try to respect that order. All right, so this is the thing, right? We already went for all of this liquidity, and you can see that there's nothing left apart from $1 or cents. Okay, so the danger of coming into $2 is that why are we really going there if we are not going for at least $1? We already put a new low relative to the previous low of 1.6. So next is to go to $1 and challenge $1, lose $1, and you're back into the trading range that we used to have around here, around the 50 cents, which is something that many people were saying, are you idiot to think that that can happen? I think it can still happen, and you're not an idiot for thinking that that is possible. What are we leaving behind? What is the risk to the upside at the moment? Let's have a very quick look, because we need to assess the risk, and we already did. Now we need to assess the upside. So if we hold $2.4, we kind of have a strong chance that we're going for the 3.4 and the 3.6 liquidity that we left there. Those are big buckets, and there is a bit bigger bucket at $3.7 and $4. So if markets recover, and this is going to apply to all the coins that come after this analysis, we need Ethereum to continue the rally into the end of the year. We need Bitcoin not to top, okay? We need Bitcoin to challenge the all-time high, even if it's slightly moving to 130 or something. And we need to hold those levels and not go into the 80s, 70s. If we do that, Ethereum is going to follow up with that, and potentially it's going to bring in an all-time high. After the all-time high of Ethereum, you get the sequence of lower and lower and lower cap playing out. XRP is high cap, therefore it should follow soonish around the time of Ethereum to go for these liquidities. If something breaks in general markets, ignore everything I'm saying and just run to the hills, right? I'm talking about a correction or a recession fears causing a crash like 2000 like bubble on AI or anything like that, which we don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know when or whatever, but let's say it happens, then forget about crypto being in its own world and surviving that. It's going to really get wrecked. Okay, so those are the levels to the upside. And let's go with the next coin, which is going to be Solana. Again, if you have any specifics about XRP, feel free to leave it right there. Let's go with Solana on Binance. And I made a video about Solana on Friday, the same day that there was a crash. And I kind of got lucky that all the levels I mentioned got hit. We talk about going into the VWAP, into the volume weighted moving average, into the support of 180. I think we even talk about 160, if I remember right, based on the liquidation levels. Let's see, Solana, it's here. And Solana also took out the largest pools. Solana still has a level of risk at 122. It's kind of equivalent to XRP, the $1. But we already took care of that. On the upper end, we have 255 and 263 waiting for us. There should be also above the $300 peak there. Solana was showing us a breakdown with a retest around beginning of October. So that has followed through with a new low on momentum. So we don't have bullish divergence in here on the daily, which is something that will be nice to see. We have lower lows, lower highs on the daily, and on the weekly, we are holding this level of support that comes in at an RSI of around 50 on the weekly. Solana, the performance after this breakout put multiple multiple layers breaking down. So first we have an initial support around here, and then this broke, and then that broke. Pretty much you could follow the hours in the clock, and every level got broken. So this one hasn't been the exception. We broke out here, we placed a pivot here, and we already broke it. We test the breakdown on Friday, and we push into the next level of support on the weekly at around 51. So nothing tells me at the moment whether we're going to hold in here and from here up we go, or whether we're going to break down this level and continue lower. For that, we can look a little bit into liquidity. So if this price goes into 120, we could actually do an analysis, the reverse of the reverse RSI, basically. I could put a level in here. Let's say this goes to 50 RSI, and let's maybe remove this line. Oh, it's not activated. There you go. So 50 RSI is around 189, and if we break that level, basically we're producing another layer down for Solana, and that means more pain potentially. So if we go, let's say if we close at 46 RSI, what is that? Like a breakdown. That will be closing at 170. Then you close basically around 146, around 46, and then you retest, and then you continue doing. So that will constitute, another layer going down into then 44, for example, with a new lower low. Just to have an idea of how does it look if Solana, misbehaves. And it's fair that I'm looking into that, because it has been misbehaving all this period, despite the fact that there's been bullishness, there's been rallies, there's been not higher highs, but there's been highs into 250 three times, and they have been sold off. Three tops. That reminds me Ethereum as well. We did three tops on Ethereum, and eventually we broke out that. So maybe Solana is just behind Ethereum, waiting for Ethereum now to hold the 4,000, continuing to new all-time high, and then Solana can break its own challenge at the moment, which is 250, so it can go into over $300. It's good that we're seeing this move down in the longs versus shorts. That's definitely convincing a lot of retail to stay away and allowing whales to position themselves better. Actually, I want to see what's going on with Solana in here, because on Friday the healthiness was really bad. So we still have on futures heating up, and on futures taker dominating. That is kind of coming from the fears that we currently have. But on spot, the average order size is becoming now big whale orders, and on futures we got big whale orders as well. So that could eventually flip the things into upside for Solana. Let me see if there's something else I want to mention about Solana. Otherwise, we can go into the next one, which is Ethereum. So Ethereum is still, having an argument with $4,000. You can tell that we have these three tops, just like Solana, but Solana after the third top, it did pretty much the same, right? Let me see. This is Solana. So you got 1, 2, and on the third top, you went to 69. Okay, so it hasn't gone that low to 74 like Ethereum did. Because Ethereum got the third top, and then did a week like this. It couldn't hold, and then it put a new low into 1,500, 1,300, and then it went into almost 5,000. So if Solana followed that, we are still due for a bit of downside, maybe into 120 something, was it? 120 to 130. If it wants to follow this, just to keep an eye if we are going to repeat that pattern. Is you can tell that Ethereum is out of that situation, and that is deciding whether the support retest is going to be against 4,000, or if it really needs to go lower. Since we already have lows at 3.4, if I come into this range, I fear is sweeping the lows to even lower to 3.2. If we hold 4,000 and Bitcoin rallies, then we have a good chance that this particular descending wedge can push higher, and then give us something hopefully closer to a new all-time high. In terms of longs versus shorts, we are below the area of value. We went already into the first percentile, something that we haven't done since October 2023, and socials are very low at the moment. We still don't have that moment of Ethereum shining in the cycle. We have the 4.9, that was good, but that post $5,000, which everybody everybody's calling. And once we get into 5,000, you get Ethereum euphoria that people are going to call for 10,000, but obviously you need to exit before that. So I will say for Ethereum, I'm gonna hold still my 3.8. If we go below sub 3.4, then I add, and that is even if it's just to come back to retest 4,000 and then go to a bear market, because at that point I'm gonna be risk free, ideally with the averaging down. And if we exit from 4,000, I'll be looking to take profits possibly post $5,000 with a trailing stop loss. Let's go into the next coin, which is Track. Track, what is this coin about? Let me know in the comments if you are the one that voted for this. I'm gonna use the one in KuCoin, and I've done some TA, but I can tell by these angles, these things that I did a long time ago. How is this looking? Let me clear the chart a bit. Right, so we flipped the strong support of all 2023 into resistance, and now we flip it back into support. But on the weekly, we haven't come back to retest the 50 cents, and I'm impressed with what we achieved last week. It's been 3 green candles in a row, which is typically a bullish signal, right? You get it here, you get it there, and there. And I will say it's the biggest 3 green candles that we have so far. Let's see this trend line. It's kind of getting close to that trend line there. Let's clean the RSI as well, and I can see that there is a breakout. So momentum says that we have a better chance of breaking beyond 88 cents because momentum already did it, and it did it interestingly on the close of the past week, which was bearish for most of the coins, but Track somehow, Origin Trail, made it in here. So there's a good chance that we go beyond that level. We're going to find probably areas of resistance around here from this order block and from that one there at 1.4 and at 1.18. The most traded area in history here is 24, which I have no doubt eventually we will hit after we are done with whatever rally we are doing now. We can use this potentially this slope to defend the rally, since we still don't have a pivot there. A pivot, let's say we do something like this, then I get a pivot and I can defend the rally like that, but we still don't have that. It's just up only so far 3 weeks in a row. For this week, I will love a close above 67, because that is the order block that we just hit. That was an ugly order block in previous support of the neckline. So closing above 70 cents is very bullish in combination with the bullish breakout that you have there for continuation. Below 70, well, it could drag a little bit back into 50 cents potentially to do the retest, right? Let's see if we can catch some liquidity, at least short term. Gosh, no one knows Track apparently. There's no liquidity for Track, I'm afraid, unless you send me a link in the chat, and maybe there's another platform offering that. Let's go with Link. Okay, damn it. Okay, so last week we closed holding the 19 support. That was previous resistance, support around here, resistance, and then support during the week. Everybody liquidated to $7-8, and this is irrelevant. We are below the volume weighted moving average. We continue with this slowdown, no revenge rally so far. We are looking at this resistance that is relevant at the moment, and it's a very tight channel, so I'm not gonna put anything below because this could accelerate. It's already too sharp to the downside. We got incoming weekly support at 41. That's the next level on the weekly, and that is $15, which is the biggest traded area. And we seem to be an attempt to go there. So if we really lose 1747, which was resistance of the double bottom that initiated the rally, then we are going to around $15 where we find the weekly support. If you don't see the weekly support, let me show it to you. So that will look like the RSI coming back to here. Okay, there are 2 setups that we can look for on the weekly. Coming back into here, you get that risk reward ratio already elevated, good enough, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and you could see something like that or play with that idea if it happens. The second is the liquidity hand to go slightly lower, and the reclaim. Obviously, I aim to enter somewhere there, and I hope I'm gonna reclaim. If I don't reclaim, I exit in a break even and I let it collapse more, but you need some protection in here. But that could be a very high elevated risk to reward area. From there, even if you put a new bottom there, here then to break out from that range. Either of them, obviously the second one is better from lower, better risk reward, but either of them is good. Watch out with, doing this from high, from 52, because that might be a fake out. You also need to protect against that on Link. I'm currently holding a spot back of Link, and I was looking to distribute above 27 in between the range of this and the big expectation of getting to 40, targets of 45. We place even targets at $50 from different indicators in the past analysis. You can tell the longs and shorts are bouncing off area of new value around here, right? We already broke down there. There's a lack of longs, and we are in an area of 30, similar to this and to that one, which you can align with local bottoms. So, there might be a little bit more of weakness around here, but I'm expecting some dead cat bounce on Link. Link has performed decently well. It's got a good structure. This week down is on Binance. On other exchanges, it doesn't exist. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it there for Link. Oh, liquidity. Why not? God, this looks ugly. What we did. Yeah, unfortunately, this didn't play out, right? So we had a head and shoulder in here, and my expectation was to catch 20 and then resume into 28, and this is completely wrong. We got a tweet around here when we were aiming to reclaim the neckline. That would have been very positive towards my area of distribution, which I love this, from 28 to there. But instead of that, we got a rejection from the neckline, and we went back down to $8, which is something that I was not at all thinking it was going to happen with Link. Otherwise, I will have distributed at 27, you see. And I emphasize on that because you need to be more forgiving with yourself on not getting things right. Now, I am not affected at all by getting this right because it's spot, because it was accumulated in the bear market, and relative to my bags of Ethereum, which I already distribute at very high prices in Solana, Chainlink, really, even if it goes into a bear market, it doesn't put me in any stress, right? The problem is people here are going all degen with leverage, and then they get liquidated. They lose it all. I'm very far from losing all on this setup that failed. That's why, it's the least of my worries in the past. Should I continue with Chainlink? Cool. Let's continue. Then there were some technical issues. It seems like the internet cut for maybe 1 minute or so. Hopefully you guys can hear me again. So I was saying that I was wrong on Chainlink. I'm just going to summarize it in case you lost the stream for 1 minute. And I wasn't expecting this to go that low. If it got rejected from there, I still have hopes that we can go into this liquidity. I haven't lost anything because I'm holding spot on Chainlink, and I have an eye for eventually getting into 28 or slightly over 30. And if we don't get there this cycle, because shit could hit the fan in general markets, then I will just keep my Link and my ADA for another cycle. Hopefully it doesn't go to zero, but that will be my plan in that case. I'm not on futures on Link or on ADA at the moment. Let's go with XPL. And if there's any technical issues, just let me know. So far, internet is working well. I think there was a cut on internet everywhere. I was checking on the phone. XPL, well, there's very little to analyze in here. It's just one layer down, one level down. There is a hidden bearish divergence at the moment calling for continuation to downside. We are trading at 47 cents. Then we have the trading range of 88. And, we should be monitoring on the 4-hour. Notice I'm in a 4-hour chart. And this from here to around there. So this is currently the situation. So there is a risk of that hidden divergence to break down and to push slightly lower from here. I do not like that the persistence of the longs, that they came back at 36 and they are again fully allocated at 58%, just like they were allocated at 106. So watch out with that potentially pushing for a new low to take out these people in here. It's just a potential scenario. It's not a certainty. It's like a yellow warning if you want. If we go against the hidden divergence, look up for a breakout above 53 RSI. So that could be some initial line in the sand to think about, maybe we're going higher, but we need to put a close above 50 cents to be talking about that. That means that the RSI will have to close at 57 or 58, maybe price at 56, 57 cents. Let's go with the next coin, which is BTC. BTC, I just did a full detailed analysis. So if you want me to cover anything specific about BTC, please write it down in the comments and I'll catch up later with that. Let's go with Pump for now. Sorry, this is not the one. Pump USDT. Yeah, that one. And right, let's increase the time frame a bit. And on weekly, yeah, so on the weekly, the support is currently being tested. That is 37. On the daily, it's a bit more of a gray area because there was this push there that got rejected, but then that became support. So I will say 37, 38 is my preferred area to place support. Resistance, I will say that is a 50. And then we got that one. Let me see if in the weekly, yeah, on the weekly, there is something going on in here at 48, almost 50. Yeah, so I want to be as accurate as possible. Yeah, I will leave it like that. And let's see this pattern. So this is a double top with a, lower high on RSI. We got that one there. I guess I was doing it on the daily. It rallied, it came back down for a new low. We are trading with RSIs below that. So momentum is absolutely drained in here. And there is a chance, so probably our risk is somewhere around 26 cents if we lose the 37, because that was previous support. What you have here positive is, we've been declining like this below resistance, and eventually this guy is gonna want to push and break it. And I can already tell that we are not overcrowded. We are at 42. The lowest it's been is 31 from 83. So definitely we already took a lot of people on this way down, and the rest of the people on this way down. That's not something that we can say about all the coins. It's a meme coin, so it can be very, very volatile and risky to trade with any leverage, even 2x. But we currently have the area most traded. This was the area of forming a wide double bottom or a cup and handle around here. So that was calling for some upside, and we could potentially enter that area again. We already have taken all the liquidity of all the range from listing, so there shouldn't be any liquidity to look to the downside. So if it wants to come back down, it's because really Bitcoin is moving down, and with Ethereum and everything, it could drag it down here. But we have already taken most of the longs. So look up for this resistance on the daily. I think on the weekly, we cannot say much, just the levels of support and resistance. And maybe we can look into some liquidity short term to the upside. Mostly, I'm interested because, on the downside, we just took it all. Let's go to 3 months, and we took that one, 46, to the downside, all gone. Just new levels forming in here that are going to become interesting, but the 008 and 9 are the biggest, but they are a little bit further away. But we have the 43 for scalping. That one is the biggest at the moment in the close proximity. Let's go with Avalanche, which people were asking for, and I think I forgot to do on yesterday's video. And let's do liquidity of Avalanche as well. Let's pump this to weekly time frame. Right. So we have the next support at $16. We went, how low did we go? We went as low as 2021. Wow. A little bit lower, and we go to listing price of 2020. And this breakout on Avalanche that probably I was mentioning on 15th of September, we were talking to go into that resistance. We also say that we need to adjust our expectations with Avalanche because it's putting lower lows, lower highs, and the structure doesn't look very bullish. It's got a resistance at 33, and it was looking like, it can build bigger patterns. So initially we built this double bottom, then this wider one, then this whole structure with resistance at 27, and we were aiming for 39. We managed to get to 36, and that's it. We hit the neckline there, and then we got pushed back down to the lowest levels in the bear market. So is it all lost? I wanna know if we can do something more now. What other things are broken? So that level there is still holding, and that's a good thing. That level is 44 RSI, and we're gonna bring it in to see where it is in the price. So that is $21 on Avalanche, is currently the next support on the weekly time frame, and hopefully it holds, because if we break that level, we're gonna get like Solana, another layer down into the next support. We have a global one in here at 34, and probably that's a bit more scary as a level. Let's see where it is. Well, we already went there. That is at $95. So ideally, we don't want to break the $20, because then we enter into this nowhere's land that has a next support at 34 RSI. We already took all that liquidity, so from that perspective, it's not attractive anymore. So we should ideally now defend the 20, build a new higher low, and then aim for the final target of 40. We took a lot of longs. We pierced the percentile in here, so it's looking for a good area of value for Avalanche. At least it's not overcrowded, right? We already pushed back down in here, took the longs, pushed back down, took the longs. Then you know that you are at least entering with less people, that $20 support. I have low expectations for performance on Avalanche. I'm happy to be surprised if it does something more. I think I have a small bag of Avalanche that I haven't taken care, because it's a small one from the bear market, but you have the extension of 1 at 55, the golden pocket at 78, but we stopped doing higher highs in March 2024. So it's a bit of a, well, hopefully we can, but I'm probably going to be looking to distribute at 50 if we get there. In terms of liquidity, which is something I didn't cover yesterday, AVAX, let's see where that is, because I'm sure we have on the upside and we left it untouched, and we could go for that. That would be great. Since on Avalanche we have lower highs, then we have buckets at 70, 62, and 40 into 50, around there. On the lower end, of course, all gone. The 20, the 9, there's just peanuts below the price, which leads a lot of people to believe that now we should have some relief on vast majority of the coins. People that look into the liquidity think that way. We took care of that, now we need to take care of the upside. So hopefully that is what's coming, so I can distribute that too. Let's look for ENA or ENA. Okay, so I covered this one yesterday as well, and I was talking about, holding that weekly support. That is not just the weekly support, it's the global support too, and that is currently located at 41 cents. That is in confluence with the previous neckline of the breakout. Then after that, a double top. We were on the way to produce a handle for a cap that will have been bullish, but we have to go for weekly support and produce now what it looks like a overextended handle of the cap at 42. That is as far as I want to go. After you enter into the neckline and you put candle closes on the weekly time frame, that is just too bad. The positive is this, because you got that area of value there. So you just did a reset similar to having crushed all these people down there at 27. And when you think how many people suffer already, you need to think, well, they suffer for me. That's the way I see it. We got all these people suffering. How many people there is left that have not suffered yet? And that at that point, I think, well, I might as well enter there, because at some point, market maker is done with the suffering and they revert into building bottom information patterns. So by knowing that this indicator is already there, it gives you some reassurance, some additional confidence. Nothing will give you certainty. And that level is similar to 41 at the moment. So could it be that we're going to build a double bottom on INA and then continue to form the handle and then hit the 135? Possible. There is some chance that we can do that. BNB has been rallying, but it was correcting in the past week. It's far away from support. It's been really crazily pushing with new highs. This low is an equal low to that. So far, the lows have been higher, so this is a bit extended now to this end, and that is because we have a red engulfing candle on BNB. I think this is the one that I was analyzing, thinking that it was XRP. Now we got the volume weighted moving average at around 969. We are still very overcrowded. This is the beauty of doing TA to multiple coins, because you see many other coins being here, many coins being below that, and you see BNB with a ton of people. They took out from 73 into 59. That's 13 points, but many other coins did this. BNB didn't, because it was looking so strong that people bought back up thinking, okay, let's go for the next wake up. And that attracted a lot of people in socials, almost putting an all-time high in social dominance. So when you get social dominance at all-time high in here, the last time, that was the last peak of BNB. I'm not saying that must happen now again, but we have more longs than that time. So this is just to say we are in a very elevated area of risk for BNB. Can it do more? Yeah, sure. Any coin can do more, still at an area of risk. The point is, if you don't take care of that risk, it's gonna punch you in the face, and it's gonna remind you that the risk was there. ENG, no, liquidity of BNB. I wanna look into that. BNB, there you go. So what did we leave on the table with BNB? So with this volatility, the symmetrical triangle expanded to that, and we are at weekly support at the moment. On the daily, this looks like a lot like a double top with a neckline right here located at 1100. And if this completes, let's look at the risk first. If this completes there, then you got all of this to push lower, and that's a new low that can hit the $800 liquidity. That's kind of the target of this thing. This is around that previous area of resistance and support, the support that led into the continuation. So it's an area of interest. It got already weak, but if this goes slightly lower, it can hit the remaining bit there of 800. And at that point, probably you can pierce the 41 global support on the daily. Now that we assess the risk, let's assess the opportunity. So what do we have here? We have some shorts that enter at the all-time high of 1381. Even on this latest week candle, some shorts enter right there. And they're building a case for going for them. At least they are on the lead compared to the $800 so far. Going to $800 is a move of 30% down, and going into that one is a 20%. So it's kind of easier to go there if market maker really wants to do another push up. And invalidate the double top in that case. We have liquidity up until, let's stretch it to 1600 max at the moment. Of course, that can change in a matter of weeks. It can be more. It could flip into 17 later if we get more. Let's put it like this. Yeah, you see that is building up. The 25x, where is the biggest leverage for BNB at the moment? We just hit it at 1353. Those ones were 25x's. And I'm gonna do the last coin, which is ENJ, and then we are done for today. ENJ USDT. Gosh, this looks very flat. So Enjin coin, yeah, I remember hearing a lot about that coin in the past cycle. I didn't get involved. There is that resistance of the neckline previous cycle. It did bearish divergence, and it came back to here. It has had some rallies, but each rally is a lower high and a lower high on momentum too. So it's very depleted, this thing. And interestingly, longs enter here on 14th of April, and they've been holding on to that. Not many left. So from 67 to 46, with what happened last week, it did this. It went to 255 from 59 to 8. Well, that's a big sharp move. It doesn't look like, but it is. How much is that? Whoa, that's a 94%. Oh my god. If you are trading with leverage and you're still there, you are very hard to to die. Like the movie. That should wipe everybody. 2x everything. We got resistance at 57 RSI. If we want to do some move up, let's see where that resistance is. It's at 97.95, and I guess we are very close to support. Support is right there. Let's expand it a bit. Yeah, we're kind of right there at support, which is 34. Yeah, the same I was using. It's just holding from that weekly support at the moment. It needs to hold that. Unfortunately, we don't have much reference in here to find other levels except for 2019. crazy. Not very often you have to do TA and compare with levels that far away. That is kind of the level we lost. In between, you have that resistance of 99. You could call it 0.1. 0.1 is the resistance, but then after that you have 0.13, and below that you never been so low. Yeah, of course you did 94%. Let's look at this like that. So the trade will be to possibly grab something around support in here and look for a push into resistance, but also look how things ended in the previous cycle to have an idea. You got that support in there, and eventually you flip that into resistance, and that's how you end up the lower level in the bear market. So I will say we have done already these two, and we are kind of in the process of, potentially breaking down in here. Why is this so bearish? It's crazy. Hopefully it holds support. There's an opportunity to go into RSI 50, but the more I look into the chart, the more I feel, the less I feel that we can do it, that we can go into 70 cents. I mean, if there is some fundamentals that really can break my arm of the TA and say, no, there is something bullish really coming into this coin, well, fair enough. But from the technicals, unfortunately, I don't see it at this time, maybe later. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for joining me today. Apologies for the technical issues. Internet is also beyond my limits. I don't know what happened there. If you want to join this, I remind you there is a link in the description to join as an elite member, and there's a QR code as well. And I'll see you next Thursday. Potentially that's the last Thursday of the month, in which case we're going to do a PineScript workshop. If not, we do something very similar to today. I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Take care.